Peace family, this is Ayapo Yapa, and I want to welcome you to the Drapetomaniac Podcast. I am the HDIC, that is the head Drapetomaniac in charge. And we're here to have conversations on how to get off this plantation. On this Drapetomaniac Podcast, we're going to have a special guest.
Excuse me. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to make sure that you listeners are listening to the Drapetomaniac Podcast on doayamedia.com. You are, right?
And this evening, we're going to have a special guest, my beautiful wife, Angela, who's going to explain what Drapetomaniac is and discuss it a little bit. So at this point, take it away, Angela.
From Ferris EDU, Ferris State University. Isn't it Ferris State University where the Jim Crow Museum is? So Ferris EDU, Drapetomania 2005, question of the month, Jim Crow. Question, what is your opinion of Drapetomania, the disease that made slaves run away from plantations? Claudia Horn, Parsippany, New Jersey. I don't know. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else interesting on this first page. Drapetomania. eScholarship.org. Drapetomania, rebellion, defiance, and free black insanity. I like that. Free black insanity. That's me. By D. Myers, 2014, cited by 5 related articles. This dissertation investigates how Dr. Butthole used science to manufacture consent among slave laborers in the antebellum South. Now that make me want to click it. So yeah, those are some of the UCLA. I did click it. I didn't want to click it. I wanted to just stay on the first search page, but I couldn't resist. Free black insanity. I like that. Free black insanity. This is the abstract of the dissertation, 2014, authors, Dr. Bob Myers, advisor, Theodore Porter, Theodore M. Porter, Kelly Robin D.G. Kelly, something. Okay, abstract. This dissertation investigates how that Butthole used science to manufacture consent among slave laborers in the antebellum South. I hope to contribute to debates on black health by addressing the issue of mental health and the role of race in the history of psychiatry. Now that's a good that's a good issue. I was reading something the other day that was I think it was like somebody was tweeting and they were talking about, you have a right to ask your therapist when you're looking for a therapist, considering therapy, you have a right to ask your therapist what their position is on white supremacy. I don't remember exactly how they termed it. And it made me think, and maybe you're shocked or surprised to know, although you don't even know me. But when I had therapy, that's what I was going to say. Are you shocked that I had therapy? But when I had therapy, I think that I only talked to black women therapists. And I did a whole process where I interviewed people, but I actually did not explicitly ask any of the black women their perspectives on racism, white supremacy, or anything of that nature. And in the tweet, I felt like the implication was that black people might be going to therapists who weren't black. But then when I thought further about it, I think that sometimes, oftentimes we figure that white supremacy only rests in white folks, and not that you could be going to a black doctor, a black therapist who is just as racist, who has internalized just as much racism or almost just as much racism, white supremacy as a white person. So, I think that it's a valid and worthy conversation to have with anyone that you're thinking about, entering into a very intimate relationship like therapy with, or marriage, or, whatever, just to kind of know who you're dealing with, because you're going to be with them at vulnerable stages, and you want to have someone with you at vulnerable times who's going to be able to reflect truth back to you, and who's going to be able to reflect your value system back to you in a way that is in alignment with who you are. Okay. I hope to contribute to debates on black health. We're going back to the abstract from someone's doctoral dissertation from 2014, Dr. Bob Myers. I hope to contribute to debates on Black health by addressing the issue of mental health and the role of race in the history of psychiatry. Cartwright's early essays and anonymous publications heretofore addressed provide unique insight into what led the physician to articulate Blacks' acts of defiance and rebellion as instances of mental instability. Instead of viewing Black people's vigilance for freedom as earnest, Cartwright was well known for having delineated a variety of mental disorders to which he claimed all Africans were prone, including shirking work-related responsibilities. That is called, in his crazy world, it's called dyssynesia aethiopica. I know I'm mispronouncing it, just forgive me. And the practice of running away to freedom, Drapetomania. This dissertation demonstrates how Cartwright mobilized statistics and diagnostic categories in hopes to convince others to limit Black mobility and eliminate power sharing. To limit Black mobility, and eliminate power sharing. Whether in the form of whites negotiating with slaves, boo, we like to say enslaved over here, providing incentives for them to work harder, or by rejecting the free Negro category altogether, that Butthole saw his duty as twofold: to correct what he argued was the misguided notion that some Blacks held the capacity to endure freedom, whereas others did not, and to put forth a therapeutic regimen by which to curb Blacks' enthusiasm for freedom. Well, you can't curb my enthusiasm for freedom. Well, I don't know. Shoot, the prescriptions they had, I guess, beating you and torturing you. Who knows? I've never really been beat or tortured, so I don't know what type of effect it would have on me. Knocking on my head, knock on wood. We got a whole bunch of fake. I'm knocking on wood. Okay. Let's see. He repudiated gradual and immediate abolition altogether and advocated instead that whites worldwide reduce all Blacks to slavery. Following the lead of the founding generation, that Butthole reasoned that there were structurally based mental and physiological differences between Blacks and whites, which led Blacks to be governed differently. Give me one moment. Oh, okay. Well, I think I've probably gone too far. Oh, no, I just wanted to read the abstract. How long is the abstract? Okay, I don't know what I clicked on, but we'll just, here we are. Free Negro insanity. Okay, let me see if I can. Okay, yeah. So, following the lead of the founding generation, Cartwright reasoned that there were structurally based mental and physiological differences between Blacks and whites, which led Blacks to be governed differently and through coercion. That means you gotta coerce us, you gotta force us, you gotta make us go along with your bullshit. So, in addition to being innovate in his diagnostic claims, I don't know what innovate means. It kind of looks like to innovate, but I don't think that's what it means in this context. On par with Jefferson's accompaniment in Notes on the State of Virginia, Cartwright consolidated existing scientific opinion and then gave it powerful and influential articulation. He motivated a transatlantic debate about free Negro insanity. Look at that. There used to be a transatlantic debate about free Negro insanity, which reflected widespread 19th century scientific thinking about race, slave management, and stimulating correct conduct in laborers. An inquiry into free Negro insanity enables a conversation about how transatlantic science and medicine serve the requirements of slavery as an institution, how science is used to determine what constituted a slave status, what was meant by slave, quote, running away, and why slaves' mental competence was necessarily an issue. By examining the genealogy of Cartwright's concepts, one can see better his process of concept creation and inquire into how objects in science get created and set aside for study. This is very academic. Yeah, Dang, I'm trying to just scroll down a little bit, but it's jumping. Okay. One more paragraph. Cartwright wrote extensively on the need for Southerners to pursue independent medical education as a way to explore diseases particular to the Southern climate and its Negroes. But despite the fact that Cartwright's early work, published before his tenure as professor of Negro diseases at the University of Louisiana, or should I say Louisiana, established his career and achieved him status, scholars address it rarely. I argue that charting how he achieves, loses, and then regains his status provides a unique window into the thinking of the emerging plantation aristocracy on how to regulate free Negro activity in the Mississippi and Louisiana territories, as well as in English, Spanish, and French West Indies. This inquiry into conduct disorder and defiance diagnosis helps readers to see both medicine's curative and productive values. The implications of such a focus stretch from the applied science of the 19th century Negro management handbooks and plantation manuals. Were there Negro management handbooks? I've never seen a Negro management handbook. This is the first time I'm hearing about it. Remember that thing that everybody talks about that people say is fake? Dang, you know what I'm talking about. It's supposed to be like where he talks about how to divide and conquer black people and, dang, I forget, but people say it's fake. It's not a real document. But Negro management handbook and plantation manuals. I've never heard of a plantation manual, but I guess, any of us who've developed businesses, who have developed businesses or run businesses or work in businesses, a lot of times you'll start to have documents of standard operating procedures or documents that lay out how things are done and how best to do things. So I guess in some sense, it would make sense that there would be, at least on some plantations, manuals. So the implications of such a focus stretch from the applied science of the 19th century Negro management handbooks and plantation manuals to the 20th century presence of medical diagnoses like attention deficit disorder, ADD, hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and oppositional defiance disorders, ODD, which are aimed at curbing the behavior of disobedient, defiant, and rebellious youth through pharmaceutical treatments. And that's interesting too, because I don't have a lot of experience with ADD, ADHD, or ODD, but this idea of curbing the rebelliousness of youth is interesting, because I kind of think, especially when you're dealing with adolescents, but at different stages in youth, it's highly normal and appropriate to be defiant, to be rebellious, to establish yourself in opposition to your parents, to establish yourself in opposition to authority. So I kind of never thought of a connection between, trying to manage the natural tendencies of young people and trying to manage the natural tendencies of Negroes. What is this? Or those of us who have free Negro insanity. Do you have free Negro insanity? I think I got free Negro insanity. Okay, so that's just a little bit about some of the, definitions of drapetomania. I wanted to kind of establish a baseline so that we were sort of kind of on the same page. And we even got to look into some academic work related to the topic of drapetomaniac. So are you a drapetomaniac? Do you consider yourself to be a drapetomaniac? I mean, I'm just wondering. I consider myself to be a drapetomaniac in a way, in terms of that song, if loving you is wrong, I don't want to be right. I kind of feel like if being with you is sane, then I'll be a drapetomaniac all day. But in general, those of you who know my personality and those of you who don't, now I tend to try to frame things in a positive, affirmative way. I like this free Negro insanity, or this concept of, I just consider myself to be a free woman. I'm free. So I don't want to define myself in opposition to anyone or anything as much as I can. I want to define myself and move and be guided by love and just by the truth and the God in me. So when I ask you if you're a drapetomaniac, I guess the question is, and it's for me, it's for you, it's for all of us, Black folks. How are you going along with someone else's plan for you? How are you going along with someone else's vision for your life? Or their intentions vis-a-vis you? You know, like, I want to use your labor. I want to abuse your body. I want to own your children. I want to own your ideas. I mean, are you going along with that? Are you accepting that? You know, like, yeah. Are you staying in place? You know, like, this Negro, you need to learn to stay in your place. Are you a Negro who's learned to stay in your place? Do you sometimes buck the system and step out of place? Are you stepping out of line in a good way? Are you consciously more and more stepping out of the place that someone else has created for you that does not serve you, your family, nor your community? Or are you staying in captivity? And then, you know, just that whole idea of being captivated. What captivates you? Some of the stuff that captivates us is bull, and we need to let it go because we're captivated by stuff that keeps us locked up, keeps us from being free, keeps us from being truly all of who we are. So what are the ways in which you are, if you were to take a moment, if we take a moment to examine ourselves, to examine our lives, in what ways are we captivated? In what ways are we locked down? In what ways are we trapped in this system? In what ways are we mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, trapped in this system? So when we take a moment to examine those things and to think about those things, or take many moments to examine those things and think about those things, the other side of that is, how can we get free? How can we express and honor and celebrate our freedom? How can we express and honor and celebrate ourselves? Our free will, our Kujichagulia. Now, Kujichagulia is I call it a Kwanzaa term. In Kwanzaa, it means self-determination. I think that it's supposed to be Swahili or Kiswahili, but self-determination. How are we expressing that? How are we honoring that? How are we celebrating that? How are we being free Negroes? How are you being a free Black person? How are you being your free self? And I don't know if I'm gonna go along with free Negro insanity, but I got free Negro sanity. Do you? My name again is Angela, and this has been another edition of the Drapetomaniac Podcast. And you can find us every week, Friday at 9 o'clock or thereabouts, at DOEAIAMEDIA.com, DOEAmedia.com. And we'll see you on the run. Thanks. Peace. And thank you again for listening to the Drapetomaniac Podcast. Tune in next week at DOEAmedia.com. DOEAIAMEDIA.com. And again, we'll catch you on the run. Peace.